All right. Welcome, everyone, to Infusions of Light. So, for those of you who are new to this broadcast, this is a global broadcast that happens monthly, every third Friday at noon Pacific Standard Time. And it is a broadcast that is committed and devoted to the evolution of humanity, one person at a time, bringing in a deeper relationship and connection to our higher self, our witness consciousness, and connecting to the healing power and the light and overall evolution that is possible whenever we do that. For those of you who are new to this, my name is Dr. Melissa Sophia Joy. I'm a naturopathic doctor. I'm also a mind, body, spirit specialist. I'm a founder of a modality called Somatic Awakening. I'm a spiritual teacher, and I'm also an oracle for a ascended master council called the Council of One, who are ascended masters as well as higher dimensional helpers who are committed to the evolution of humanity through the law of love and the law of unity. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so delighted to talk about this really powerful and really important topic on anxiety. So for most of the people that I work with, I would say probably a good 95% of the people that I work with have anxiety. They could be in a combination with a lot of different things. It can be anxiety and depression or anxiety by itself. I mean, definitely how it's correlated to physical health, because anxiety can definitely connect to all sorts of different issues. Everything from autoimmunity to low immunity to GI distress to numerous different issues that can plague us on a physical level. And when I look at anxiety, I think the first thing that I just want to say is that I look at it through a lens of what I have seen with the almost thousands of people. I would say over 1,000, more than 1,000 people that I've worked with over the last 20 years who've had anxiety, because it plagues so much of our population. I actually looked up the statistic last night. It's 40 million plus people in the United States. And that's actually people who've been diagnosed with anxiety, not to mention the people who have anxiety on a daily level that haven't been diagnosed. So anxiety is a really deep issue. And my sense of it is that that statistic is much, much higher. I would even go to say probably half of the United States, if not more, because what we're dealing with here is what I talked about in my blog, which I call the paradigm of go. And this is a paradigm that has really been entrenched in our collective psyche on so many, many, many different levels. And my sense of it is that it's something that we inherit, especially whenever we look at what's happening between the ages of 1 and 6. We're in a what's called a hypnagogic state. So what that means is that we're absorbing, literally absorbing what's going on in our atmosphere, what's happening with our parents, with our primary care provider, with our families, the different experiences that we're getting, where we're being conveyed to us in so many different levels, on a conscious level and definitely on a subconscious level, that what we need to do in order to survive our world is to go, to push, to do, to push more, to push more. And this sets the stage for many of the things that I'm going to talk about today and how anxiety affects us. But before we do that, I just want to bring in a couple of different things. As I was preparing for the lecture for today and for the transmission for today, I realized that anxiety is such a huge, huge topic, and I had so much to say about it that I decided to make this a two-part process. So this is part one, and then next month we're going to go into part two. So today what we're going to be doing is looking at what I'll call the scaffolding, the overall perspective, both on a physiological, scientific perspective, as well as on a perspective of our psyche and what's happening on a conscious level, subconscious, and even unconscious level with the anxiety that we're experiencing. And the next time we'll go deeper into looking at it from multiple perspectives in terms of looking at it, well, how do we actually take this in from our familial inheritance on an energetic and emotional level? What happens whenever past lives get involved, which they definitely do. If you've had those type of experiences, you know that past lives, if we've had a traumatic past life, it can definitely affect our nervous system and how we perceive our world around us. So for today, diving in. So first, what I want to do is I want to talk about it from somewhat of a scientific perspective. So bear with me for a moment. If you're a non-science person, I'm going to make this as simple and easy as possible. So the first thing I just want to say is that it is true that anxiety can be caused from a physiological issue. So there are a few things that when a person comes in to my practice, I definitely look at. And so those things could be, it could be a genetic issue, such as there could be an enzymatic SNP. So basically what that means is that our genes aren't actually working correctly to allow all the enzymatic processes to break down some of the stress hormones. An example of this is the MTHFR, and that has to do with folic acid. I'm not going to go into the physiology and science of it, but it is something that we want to look at. And then there's something else called pyroluria, which is when we have an issue with a hemoglobin synthesis and we have a byproduct that doesn't know how to break down, our body doesn't know how to break it down, and so we have this buildup of this substance, which can cause more anxiety in our body. Another option or another possibility is high histamine levels. High histamine can also cause a sense of anxiety, as well as certain medications. So these are some of the possibilities that we want to rule out on a physiological level whenever we're working with anxiety. However, what I have experienced in my practice is that even when a person has these different physical issues which can increase one's anxiety, most of the time we're dealing with other things too. So in other words, the reason for their anxiety is not just a physiological issue, because once we've treated that, the anxiety will decrease, but oftentimes it's still there. So we have to look deeper at what's really, really going on. So what I'd like to do now is actually talk about how our body holds anxiety, because there's three different types of anxiety I'm going to talk about, and then we'll talk about how to work with it, and then we'll go into transmission. So there are three different types of anxiety according to looking at our brain physiology, brain anatomy. And then we're going to also talk about it on a somatic level. So the first thing I want to talk about is the thinking brain and how the thinking brain can actually cause anxiety. So what we're talking about here in terms of anatomical structure, we're talking about the frontal cortex, the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of us that can analyze and can understand through our cognitive conscious understanding. So this is a very conscious part of us. And so an example of this is when we have something happen, say for instance it was somewhat of a traumatic experience. I'll give you some examples later on. But what will happen is that we will go into hyper thinking. What did I do wrong? How can I do it better? What do I need to do to make sure this doesn't happen again? So these types of thinking, what I'll call it's this type of anxiety rather, is it's this looping anxiety. So this is the kind of anxiety that can keep you up at night, wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking about that difficult conversation you had with your colleague or your mother, and oh my God, what's going to happen now, and what do I need to say, and how am I going to work it out, right? So this is the thinking level of anxiety. Then we go into what I call the limbic system aspect of anxiety. So the limbic system, just really, really briefly for those of you who don't understand or haven't heard about it in the past, it is the part of our brain that is connected to emotion. We'll call it raw emotion. And so this is the part of our brain that will bring awareness to an emotional response to an actual experience, and actually holds a lot, at least in terms of the brain, will hold a lot of that memory of this experience connected with, say, for instance, in a negative emotion. And then next time that experience happens in the future, then there's going to be anxiety because there's going to be a fear that that same thing is going to happen in the future. So this also is a subconscious. It can be somewhat conscious, of course, and then also moves into the subconscious perspective of anxiety. So another way of saying that is that we're somewhat aware of it, but we don't really know exactly what it is. We can't quite put our finger on it until we have someone really help unwind it with us and for us, like a practitioner such as myself, or a therapist, or or other people like that, other healers. So this type of memory is also held in our body in a somatic level. So anyone who's ever done any somatic work, such as somatic awakening or other types of somatic work, you know that once we connect in on an anxious feeling inside, then there's memories that are held there as well. And that could be an energetic memory, an emotional memory, an actual memory of seeing what happened, etc. So this is limbic system anxiety. So then we go to the third level of anxiety, and that's what I call the reptilian or the animal body anxiety. And so this is a very unconscious perspective of how we hold anxiety. And so with the reptilian brain, there's a lot of things that I could say about it, but one of the basic things I want to say about it in connection to anxiety is that it is activated when we go into intense fight, flight, freeze. So when we pass what I'll call a bifurcation point, we move into a regular understanding of reality, into overwhelm, and then into even more intense overwhelm. And we perceive something is connected to our survival. So in other words, are we going to survive this or are we not? Now that doesn't mean that it actually is connected to your physical survival. What it means is that we perceive that it's connected to our survival. Again, I'll give you an example in a moment so that you can really elucidate this. So this is, again, it's an unconscious part of our memory bank, so meaning that we don't understand it. We can understand it after we start opening these different doorways of understanding what's actually happening with our anxiety. And again, this can definitely be stored in your body. And that's both from theoretical perspective, but even more than that, that's my own lived experience in my own life, as well as the hundreds and thousands of people that I've worked with somatically. So then comes the question, why do we have anxiety? What's really going on? Well, yes, we understand there's these different aspects that are running, but what's really happening? And so when I first started really learning about anxiety, not just from reading about it, but from healing my own anxiety, if you read my blog, you see that I have a background of having a lot of anxiety. This is one of the reasons why I specialize in working with people that have anxiety in my practice. And what I started learning is that anxiety is a lid. Same thing with depression. Depression can be a lid as well. And that could be the anxious lid, the depression lid, or even you can have both of them together, the anxious depression lid. And what I mean by that, it's a lid that is on top of something that's underneath. So what I have found most common is that there's some level of trauma that's happening underneath, that has happened underneath. Usually it's multiple levels of trauma. There could be a core trauma that happened, or maybe there's a few core traumas that happen, and then there's that's a core voice, we'll call it that, and then there's all the sub voices that come up off of that, right? And then the anxiety puts a lid on top of it because on some level our psyche has said, this is too much for me to deal with. And so it puts a lid on top of it. So let's unwind this a little bit. I'm going to give you an example here. So it's an example that's kind of similar to an example that I use in my ebook. If you've read that, you'll see the correlation here. But it's a little bit different because I'm going to go deeper into how anxiety works specifically here. So in this example, we'll use a girl who is 5 years old, and her mother has left the family for whatever reason. Maybe she has her own psychological issues, maybe, whatever, why ever, she left the family, and the father is now in charge of the children. The father, however, is a workaholic, and the father is trying the best that he can to show up for his kids, yet he has, on his anxiety levels, he has a voice that says, well, I need to work really, really hard in order to survive this world, right? So unfortunately, what that means for the kids is that he doesn't really know how to show up for them on an emotional level. So the attachment is not there the way that they really need. So this girl, in the maturity level of her 5-year-old mind, decided that she needed his love, number one. That's an imperative, right? That's like a Maslow's hierarchy of need. It's an imperative for the parent to be there, to show up for them. So she had a survival need that he was fulfilling or not fulfilling according to what he could do. And because he was not fulfilling that perceived survival need of emotional support, what happened is that she said, okay, what I'm going to do in her 5-year-old mind to survive this traumatic situation, she decided, okay, well, I'm going to be just like my dad. I'm going to be hyper vigilant with the world. I'm going to be concerned about what I do and what I don't do in terms of being a perfectionist, being a workaholic. So here she is in kindergarten being a workaholic with making sure that everything that she does and all the drawings that she does in kindergarten is perfect, right? So she was doing that so that she could help herself deal with the intense amount of feelings that she was having, because it was just so overwhelming for her system. So as a 5-year-old, it actually worked pretty well for a while, right? She's also trying to prevent the trauma from happening again. In other words, she doesn't want her dad to leave, so she's doing anything that she can to make sure that he loves her and that he's present, right? So fast forward in time. One of the things that happened is that her dad actually sees that she's doing what he's doing. From his lack of understanding, on some level, he's saying, that's good, that's great. So she's getting some positive accolades for that, because that's how he views the world. He wants her to survive. But what happens is that this sense of workaholism, this sense of perfection, gets solidified in her system. So then what happens is that she becomes a stressed out, really anxious person. Fast forward in her 30s, she's working at a corporation and she has to give a big presentation. Lo and behold, her boss is just like her dad. And she gives this big presentation for this other agency. They were going to purchase some things from the corporation. She didn't quite do what she wanted to do in the presentation. It didn't quite come across the way she wanted it to. They decided not to purchase from the corporation. The boss is now upset at her. She loses it. So now let's talk about why she loses it. So on a thinking level, right? So she has this really powerful thinker that's saying, okay, I have to be perfect. I have to work really hard. I have to do all these different things. So her boss, vis-a-vis unconsciously her dad, right, is upset at her. So her thinker is going, meaning she's waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. She can't sleep. She's upset, right? So her thinking anxiety is completely off the chart. Now, let's take it to the limbic system activation. So what's happening is on a physical level, she's really feeling all of these emotions. So the neurotransmitters that are connected to this high degree of sympathetic fight, flight, stress, freeze perspective is now in her body. So if we were to ask her, well, how are you feeling? She'd be like, okay, I feel this knot in my belly. I feel like I'm going to throw up. I feel like I can barely handle it. My brain is, my head is going to pop off my body, so to speak, right? So this is this limbic system activation. When we go even deeper, the core reason why all of this is happening is because her reptilian animal body is being activated. And what's really occurring is that if we track it all the way back to whenever she was 5 years old and her mother left and her father took over and she was feeling like she's going to die if her father can't show up for her. And there was a feeling of this kind of survival issue anyway because her mother leaving. So what was really happening whenever she's 30 is that this is getting activated, right? And so what we're doing here is we're looking at all the different ways of what's really happening when we're anxious. Now, sometimes we have an anxiety that is primarily from the cortex, frontal cortex perspective. Now, whenever we have an anxiety that is working primarily from that perspective, we can do things like cognitive behavioral therapy or traditional talk therapy, where we can really promote more sense of positive self-affirmative talk, or things like gratitude practices, or we can go into positive affirmations in general. And so whenever we do that, and it's primarily from the thinking brain, then those levels of anxiety will decrease. Now, when we go into the limbic system perspective of anxiety, and definitely into the reptilian brain level of anxiety, we need to go deeper. So that's when these different modalities can come in that actually address this on a deeper level. And the one that I have found to be the most successful in my own life and in my practice is somatic awakening. One of the reasons why I'm teaching that more and more now, because what we're doing with somatic awakening is that we're connecting to the higher power of our witness that comes from our higher self, our spirit perspective. And we're allowing that witness consciousness to actually meet the place inside of us that is holding this deeper level of anxiety from what I'll call the subconscious, unconscious places inside of us, both from the brain perspective as well as from the somatic perspective. And the way that I define somatic is that it's the coming together of the physical, the emotional, and the energetic, right? So when we can actually bring this higher perspective of our witness consciousness into direct relationship with these parts. So say, for instance, we can go all the way down to this 5-year-old part of this woman and actually bring to this younger self that was so traumatized by her mother leaving and so traumatized because her father wasn't able to show up emotionally for her, that we can bring a stabilizing, steadying presence, love, nurturing, whatever this younger self needs, we can bring that into direct relationship to that younger self that's stored in the body. And whenever we do that, that's when I've seen the deepest level of anxiety start to decrease over and over and over and over again. So this is one of the things that we're going to work with on a transmission level today. But before we go into transmission, I do want to just bring in a couple of different tools that you can use in the moment that will be very, very, very helpful for you. So the first thing I just want to talk about is that because I'm a naturopathic doctor, there are many different herbs that you can use to help decrease your sense of anxiety. And these herbs are called nervine herbs, so you can look them up online. The first thing I just want to say is that if you're on any medications, especially on any antidepressants or any specific medications for anxiety, make sure to clear this with your doctor, because there could be a lot of contraindications with these herbs and medications. So the specific herbs I'm talking about, there are what I'll call the milder tonifiers, such as skullcap, vervain, California poppy. All of those can help you decrease your anxiety overall. And then there's the more heavy hitters, such as valerian and hops and kava kava. Those are some of my favorites. Just keep in mind that the kava kava you don't want to take really long term, because it can affect your liver enzymes. So the other thing that I just want to say is that there is a new technology coming out now. It's a patch technology that's using light waves, specifically using our infrared light waves, and it reflects back information to our body to do different things. And there's one patch that I have started being introduced to and have had some amazing experiences with myself, and other patients have had experiences, and it's called the Aeon patch, AEON, by LifeWave. If you want to know more information about it, you can email me and I'll give you more information about that. And the other tool that I want to use, and we'll I'm going to talk about this tool, and then we're going to actually practice it, and then we're going to go directly into transmission from here. This tool is I'll just call it in the category of pranayama. I used to be a yoga teacher. By the way, yoga is a wonderful way to decrease anxiety. And as I was a yoga teacher, one of the things that I learned in my yoga teacher training was different types of pranayama. So pranayama is a breath technique. And there are different types of pranayama that can decrease anxiety, but there's one type that I have found to be the most successful, and this is called the ratio breath. And so a ratio breath, what that means is that however many seconds of the inhale, we're going to either mimic that or lengthen that number of seconds of inhale to the exhale. So what I mean by that is that we have two different ratios that we're going to be working with. There's the 1-to-1 ratio, meaning if you have 4 seconds of the inhale, you'll have 4 seconds of the exhale, and then you just keep on repeating that. You can lengthen it as you go. You want to use the 1-to-1 ratio when you're in a very acute state of anxiety. So like panic attack, or something where you're in a complete fight, flight, freeze perspective. 1-to-1 ratio pranayama works really, really well. Now, if you want to really help decrease the anxiety so that it's not as really, really acute and it's come down just a little bit, and now you want to really decrease the anxiety and increase parasympathetic nervous system, meaning increase that part of our nervous system that's very relaxed, that is connected to us whenever we're sleeping and meditating, so that we can go deeper, then what I recommend is the 1-to-2 ratio. So 4 seconds, as an example, 4 seconds on the inhale, 8 seconds on the exhale, 5 seconds on the inhale, 10 seconds on the exhale. So I'd like to practice this with you. And again, as I said, what we're going to do is we're going to practice it. And then toward the end, I'm just going to automatically move now into opening up to transmission. I'll start with a prayer, and then we'll go deeper into the transmission process. All right, before we do that, I'm going to take a quick sip of water. I invite you to do the same if you'd like. Excuse me. All right. So now let's go ahead and move into ratio pranayama. Excuse me. Okay. So I invite you to close your eyes. And actually, I'm going to contradict myself and ask you to open your eyes for a moment because I want to show you one more thing. This will be very helpful whenever you do this on your own. This is something that yogis figured out many years ago. So it's really difficult to count the number of breaths that you're having, as well as doing the inhale and exhale. So I'm going to show you something that they figured out that I want to share with you, which is very, very helpful. And so what we want to do is at least do a round of 16 breaths. If you do a round of 16 breaths and you find that you still need some more relaxation, more parasympathetic rather, stimulation, then you can do a whole other round and go into 32 breaths. So to do 16 breaths, what we're going to do is with each breath, we're going to move our thumb different parts of our hand. So here's one breath. Here's 2 breaths right at the little line of the first finger, 3 breaths at the next line, 4 breaths at the junction of the finger and the knuckle. This is the next breath, and on it goes until we get down to 16 counts, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way down until we get to 16. Okay, so we're going to do 16 breaths today. And another thing that I just want to say for those of you who have insomnia, this is a great thing to work with in the middle of the night. But in order to do that, you have to have the practice pretty solidified in your being in order to do it in the middle of the night, because otherwise it gets really confusing. But I've had many people come back after I've recommended this to them and say, oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you so much. So it really does work. All right. So let's go ahead and begin. So I'm going to count us through this process. So again, closing your eyes, and let's go ahead and take the first breath. And one thing that we're going to do is I'm going to lengthen as we go. So first breath, 2, 3, 4, On the inhale, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if you can't make it all the way to 8, that's totally fine. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now we're going to increase it just a little bit. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Last time together. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And if you're not following along with the fingers, we're at the top of the third finger. Now I'm going to go ahead and invite you to do this on your own. You can keep it at the 5, 10 count. You can go back to 4, 8, or you can increase it up to 6, 12, for instance. Just do what feels right for you. I'm going to join with you here. And on every movement of the breath, after you complete a breath, just move down 1 on your fingers. And depending on how long or short your breath is, we're all going to end at a different time. And so I'm just going to invite you that if you end at 16 and we're still not complete, go ahead and continue breathing in this way. And if you can, I invite you to lengthen your inhale and exhale even more. And let's go ahead and do one more together. And if you can, go ahead and do a 7, 14 count here, just to really lengthen it out. And go ahead and allow your breath to return back to normal. And now opening to transmission with opening to prayer. So I invite you just to join with me now as we open the space. We open the space to the energy of all that is. Thank you so much, Mother, Father, God, for consecrating and protecting and holding us in this sacred space of healing. And we call to us now the higher dimensional helpers and ascended masters and angelic guides who are aligned with the law of love and the law of one, that will help us connect to the healing transmission that we are ready to receive today, to heal the place inside of us that is most ready to relax, that is most ready to receive this divine safety, that is most ready to allow the level of anxiety that is running one's life to turn down, to feel safe enough to receive this deep level of nurturing, to receive this deep level of relaxation, so that we may more fully be in alignment with who we are, with our higher self, and what we came here to do as divine beings of light, having this human experience. So I want to call in specifically the energy of Kuan Yin, our overlighting guide today. Beautiful divine mother embodiment, and calling in the grace and the wisdom and the waters of healing of Kuan Yin. And we give gratitude, knowing that you are already here, feeling your presence. And we also call in the Ascended Masters, Jesus, Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, Green Tara, and any other of the light who want to join us today. Thank you so much for your presence. We call in the archangels, Michael, Raphael, Uriel, Gabriel, Metatron, Shamuel, and Zadkiel. Thank you for holding this very powerful consecrated container for us to help us take this next step in our healing. And we also give gratitude for the higher dimensional helpers of Arcturus, of Sirius, of the Pleiades, of the Hathors. Thank you for all that you have done to guide my mission and my opening and my healing to offer this to the world and to offer it to us today. Thank you so much. Gratitude for this healing, gratitude for this container, gratitude for this transmission. And we open now into the loving arms of Kuan Yin, connecting us to our higher self. Thank you. It is done. It is done. It is done. So now I'm going to be quiet. And when I come back, I will be in transmission space. Greetings. We come to you today, first and foremost, by acknowledging your divine power, by acknowledging your sovereignty and your free will, and by acknowledging every experience that you have ever had through the space and time continuum that has gotten you to where you are at today. We see the commitment and the devotion that you have in both healing yourself and being a beacon for those around you and to the world. And we are so grateful that you are as committed as you are. And we also acknowledge the difficult energy of anxiety that runs. For many of you, you have worked with this energy for years. And we acknowledge all the work that you have done. And we see and want to name the deeper levels on the subconscious, unconscious, what this one called limbic system, reptilian animal system level of anxiety that has been running in your system. And first, we want to name what is. Since this one will be holding space for this topic, this broadcast and next broadcast, we will just briefly cover the deep level of anxiety and how it is manifested through the space and time continuum, how it is given to you through familial inheritance, how it is a continuation of your soul's journey in working with trauma of your past life. All of these things are crucially important to address to get to the core root of the anxiety. And it is also crucially to address the reasons for it in this lifetime, this space, this continuum of your soul's journey. So for each of you, there are different stories, different experiences. But what we want to do is we want to open a connection to your higher self, to the light of your higher self, and to allow this light to be merged with your awareness and to open the doorways that you are ready to have open to see in a new way all of the different experiences, that which we would call chronic, subacute, and past experiences of acute trauma that overwhelmed your system, that overwhelmed your physiology, your energy body, your emotional body, and created belief thought forms that helped you to survive it. So in this time, we are, with your permission, aligning with your light to allow this light to turn on the light, so to speak, in the places you have not yet perceived. An alignment with the capacity of your being. So staying within your tolerance zone, well within your tolerance zone, opening on a intuitive feeling, sensing level, that which you are ready to remember, to receive, to understand. And the understanding, more than likely, will not be so much analytical as it is energetic. So we will be quiet now as you open to this next level of understanding of that which is longing to be healed. And on your end, we invite you to move again into your feeling, sensing, intuitive ways of being, to not try to think through this, but to feel and sense and intuit your way through this, allowing your higher self to guide you. Just open, trust, and receive. As you receive this information, we invite your witness consciousness, this part of you that has the ability to be powerfully present, to be here with you, to perceive whatever it is that you are perceiving. All you have to do is just invite this awareness to be here, so that what is being remembered is not alone. The awareness of your higher self is here too. releasing any sense of trying. And continue to open. For some of you, you might have a specific memory. For others of you, you might be being led to a specific part of your body. Maybe there's a tension or a tightness or a contraction. And just continue to allow the wisdom of your higher self and your somatic body to lead you. To a more fuller understanding of your next step of healing this anxiety. For some of you, you have been going so fast for so long. Just the very act of stopping is miraculous. So allow the miracle to take root of your stopping. Whatever that means for you right now, right here in this breath, giving yourself permission to stop, to be, to exist, to breathe. Notice whatever feelings you're having, whatever sensations you're having, allowing them to be exactly as they are, with a powerful presence of your witness here. And for every single one of you on this call now, or on this call in the future, we are offering to you a sacred container, a pool of healing water. So if it feels in right alignment for you, we invite this part of you that you are perceiving, this next part of your anxiety that's ready to be healed, we are inviting it to now move into, to step into this pool of healing, allowing this part of you to float in the waters of nurturing, in the waters of healing, and the waters that bring coherence, that bring balance. In the waters of this profound sense of tranquility. For some of you, the level of anxiety is so high that we're just going to invite these waters to move into your system like a homeopathic dose. For others of you, we are inviting your skin to be like a receptor to take these waters of healing in to the level that is right for you. For some of you, it's going to be 5%. For others of you, it's going to be all the way to 100%. So notice what is right for this part. Not right for your mind, but right for this part. as you come back, as this part comes back to a sense of safety, to a sense of allowing. Allowing your being to be in alignment with the very nature of what it means to be without needing to do anything, but just to be, that you have permission to merely be, to exist. And for some of you, this goes against this part that has been so anxious for so long. So again, just notice, maybe you need to turn it down even more to a homeopathic dose so that this part of you that has been pushing for so long understands that you are worthy enough now, that you are good enough to be safe, to merely exist, to allow yourself to be. Full deep breaths in and out. And as much as possible, just allowing your awareness to be solely focused on your breath. If thoughts arise, just bring them back to the being quality of your breath. Moving more and more into the magical quality of presence, being in this moment, being in this breath. One of the biggest transmissions that we want to leave you with is, first of all, an acknowledgement that you can come back to these healing waters at any time to allow these parts, especially the anxious parts, to be soothed. And also that as these anxious parts are soothed, you will have more and more time in the magical aspects of presence. And I say magical aspects because the truth of it is that if you want to manifest something in this reality, the best way, the easiest way, the most coherent way to do that is from doing it through presence. Both from living in presence in your everyday life, which is a higher level of evolution, but even if you are not there yet of living in presence in your everyday life, to bring your awareness into presence in meditation. And then as you are in the magical quality of presence, you can call out the energetic emotional attributes of what you want, what you are manifesting while you are in presence. So another way of saying this is that your world, your society is so forward thinking in the sense of go, do, push, that it doesn't really know how to manifest with ease and grace what it is it most wants. So in order to do so, we must calm the anxious voices and move into the magical aspect of presence. So we are with you in this process for as long as you call and need support. We will be here. Whether it be this specific council or others, other ascended masters, other angelic guides, others specifically of the law of one and the law of love, who honor your free will and honor your sovereignty. We are here to help guide you through this process. For anxiety closes the energetic centers of a human being, and it is virtually impossible to step into an evolved, awakened field with anxiety running full force. And we are in alignment with your evolution, with your freedom, with your sovereignty. And we want more than anything to allow you to be free, especially of the contraction of anxiety. So as we depart, we invite a few more deep breaths in and out, knowing that the one who is in the waters of healing will stay there for as long as he or she needs. And we invite you to come back to him or her as often as is possible, to nurture, to love, to heal, to give him or her what she most longs for in order to step more fully into healing. We leave with an acknowledgement of the love that we all are and the oneness that we all are. An acknowledgement that we are here as mentors to you, as you need, to help you step more fully into this love and more fully into this unified consciousness that you are, into the light and freedom and love that is in everything. And so it is. So breathing deeply in and out. And again, affirming that this integration will occur in the right and perfect timing and with ease and grace. And we are right at time. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish here. Just wanting to say, first of all, thank you so much for joining me today. And also just want to affirm that meditation really does help. And there are a couple of free meditations on my website. Grounding meditation, which will definitely help if you're feeling anxiety, as well as somatic awakening meditation, which will help you take your next steps in terms of healing. And they are underneath. If you go on my website, there's a menu at the top. Click or just hover over teachings, and then down at the bottom, free recordings, so you can connect that way. Also, if you ever want to go deeper into this work, I do this work one-on-one with people, and so connect with me if you'd like to do that. And then lastly, for those who are listening in March of 2019, I just want to let you know, if you want to go deeper and a day long, I do have a day long coming up on April 6th from 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock in Petaluma, California. And it is called Living Love, Allowing the River of Love to Heal Your Core Wounds. So this would be a great next step for those of you who are interested. And there is a discount that ends tomorrow. So if you are interested, I really encourage you to jump on my website and click on Living Love underneath my teaching section again and sign up for that. So whatever happens, whether I see you soon or talk to you soon or not, I just want to say thank you again for joining, and I pray that you can easily take your next step into healing your anxiety so that you are free. Because the more that we are free, the more that we are living in alignment with who we are, living in alignment with our higher self, and living in alignment with the love that we are. And so it is. So thank you so much for joining today. And please join me next month on the third Friday at noon for part 2 of anxiety as we dive in deeper. Blessings.